Hello and welcome everybody to tonight's Kegs and Issues. My name is Tommy Johnson. I'm with the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for joining me today for Kegs and Issues, Protecting Portland's Water Supply. We have an amazing lineup of speakers for you tonight. Karen Jackson from Sebago Clean Waters, Karen Young from Sebago Clean Waters, Laurel Jackson from Portland Water District, Barry Sheff from Woodard and Curran, and Kristin Jackson from the Natural Resource Council of Maine. But first, I wanted to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors of this program who make Kegs and Issues possible, whether in person or virtual. Baker Newman Noise, WEX, Seaport Credit Union, and tonight's featured sponsor, Consolidated Communications. Now, normally when we host these events, the first round of drinks would be on them. However, for tonight, I hope you brought your own favorite beverage with you. Our cooperating sponsors are Moody's Collision Center, Mindful Employer, and Maine Mortgage Solutions. Our reception sponsors, Portland Beer Hub, Maine Brews Cruise, Vacation Land Distributors, and Rivalries. I would also like to recognize our craft brewery, distillery, and winery members. Without them and their support and engagement, this event would not be what it is today. Now, our newest brewery member, Lone Pine Brewing, is also with us tonight, and we'd like to welcome brewer and co-founder Tom Madden to tell us about the work they're doing to support Sebago Clean Waters and the Maine Brewshed. Tom?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Madden, co-founder of Lone Pine Brewing in Portland and Gorham. We're excited to be here. I think our introduction today is fairly relevant as we just launched a line of seltzers in association with Sebago Clean Waters to help support their efforts with the preservation of Sebago Lake. We're hoping that these products will help bring support and awareness to the causes that we'll hear a little more about, I think, tonight. And thanks again, and excited to hear the presentation.
Thank you, Tom. So glad to have you guys on board. Our media partners are Town Square Media, Maine Magazine, WCSH News Center Maine, and Maine Biz. I would also like to thank the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce's special community partners, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, Spectrum Healthcare, University of Southern Maine, Southern Maine Community College, and MEMIC. With their support, we are able to deliver events like this and many other chamber initiatives. Also, a big shout out to Aura. We cannot wait to be back live with you soon. And before we get to our keynote presentation, please welcome tonight's featured presenting sponsor, Consolidated Communications. Joining us is Diane Monroe, Director of Sales, Northern New England. Diane?
Thank you, Tom. And I can't wait to be back at Aurora and being able to give you all a free drink on Consolidated Communications. As Tom said, my name is Diane Monroe. I'm the Director of Sales for Northern New England. We have been sponsoring the great work that the Portland Chamber has done for the last 4 years, and we're very proud to be a sponsor to this evening's event. Consolidated Communications is a leading broadband and business communications provider across 23 states. And we are the region's largest communication provider for business, residential, and carrier services in New England. Our mission is to turn technology into solutions while connecting people and enriching how they work and live. This has been particularly important during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we are working hard to keep our businesses and communities connected. We have assisted many local Maine organizations, responded quickly to their customers and their patients, such as extra capacity for remote workers, for Maine Medical, expanded internet for Spurwink and Community Concepts, and speed upgrades for NETSI. We have also developed offerings to assist K-12 students for free and reduced pricing for internet to ensure that they can stay connected and learn effectively remotely. We're also currently offering many expanded internet solutions to assist employees to work from home as more businesses have shifted to the new way of doing business. Again, thank you for joining us for this great event tonight, and we look forward to continuing our partnership in the future and being able to buy you all a free drink. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Diane. And again, great support from Consolidated. Thank you so much for your continuing support of this event series. And now I'd like to welcome our presenters for tonight's topic by introducing Karen Young, Coalition Coordinator of Sebago Clean Waters, who will be moderating our discussion. Karen?
Hey, Tommy, thank you so much. And thanks to all of our sponsors. And I want to say cheers to our fellow chamber members. We're thrilled to be here for Kegs and Issues tonight. April is Earth Month, and next week, May 2nd through the 9th, is Drinking Water Week. So this is the perfect time to be talking about clean water. We've got a great lineup for you tonight, and each of us is going to make a short presentation, and then we're going to go into a Q&A session. So clean drinking water, it's not something that most of us are thinking about very often. And the reason is because we're incredibly fortunate. It's not something we have to think about. We get to take it for granted because when we turn on the tap, there's nice, safe, clean drinking water. There's as much as we need, and it's easy to get. So, so we're incredibly lucky for that. Many people I talk to don't even know where their tap water comes from. If you live in the greater Portland area and you're wondering, it probably comes from Sebago Lake, the very same lake that you might be swimming or boating on in the summer or ice fishing in the winter. So I want to start by sharing a quick video that will sort of set the stage for our panel and just get us started on the topic.
We are really fortunate because of Sebago Lake's excellent water quality that we are one of approximately 50 drinking water supplies in the nation not required to filter the water as part of our treatment process. Watershed is all the land that drains to a particular water body. And the Sebago Lake watershed is about 360 square miles. So it's really large and it extends from Standish all the way up to Bethel.
Having clean water is essential for health. And when you're raising your kids, you want them to be healthy, and having clean water that they can drink anytime is hugely important.
You can have an incredibly high quality coffee, but if the water that you're actually brewing it in is contaminated or not clean, it's not going to taste very good. Having clean, great tasting water is essential. If you don't have clean water, we can't serve you a great cup of coffee.
Sebago Clean Waters is made up of 9 different organizations, and we all work together to try and conserve the forested land in the Sebago Lake watershed. The work that Sebago Clean Waters is doing is really important because the forest is our natural filter.
One of the great things about living in Maine is having access to water, having access to nature, and having access to lakes. It's just so beautiful.
We do have clean, great tasting water, but it is our responsibility to make sure that the next generation can say the same thing. So it's really important that we act now.
So hopefully the audio was working on that. I just got a text that somebody was having a challenge. But anyway, essentially Sebago Lake is a unique resource. It's pure, it's abundant, and it's naturally protected by forests. And so we're very fortunate in this region to have it. The challenge that we're facing is that this region is so desirable that we're also growing. And that's something we want to support in a sustainable way. We want to make sure that development doesn't overwhelm the forests that protect our lake. So what we have is an opportunity to protect the Sebago Lake resource before it gets degraded, like so many other water bodies around the nation are. And we believe that we can do this by promoting both sustainable development and protecting the forests that are protecting our waters. So Sebago Lake is an important connection between the watershed communities where our water comes from and the downstream water users that rely on that water, which is a great way to bring our communities together. And we really believe in the power of collaboration. So we're working to engage businesses, municipalities, community organizations, and citizens from both regions in this work because there are benefits both for the water that's being used downstream and for the recreation and wildlife habitat and economic support that the forests provide to our watersheds. Sebago Clean Waters is a coalition of nonprofit conservation organizations working with the Portland Water District. And we're also partnering with businesses who are very forward-thinking, who care about protecting the clean water that's important in their products and also to their communities. So we're very grateful for that. And we're certainly always interested in talking with anybody new who wants to be working with us. So next, I'd like to turn it over to Laurel Jackson with the Portland Water District, who's one of our key partners. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself and then talk more about why Sebago Lake is so special and unique, and also talk about the work that Sebago Clean Waters and Portland Water District are doing to protect it.
Great, thank you, Karen. Thanks for the introduction. I'm Laurel Jackson. I'm from the Portland Water District. I've been with the Portland Water District for almost 15 years. In the past 10 years, I've been working as a water resources specialist, and my main duties focused on the monitoring and protection of Sebago Lake. Recently transitioned to a new role, so this is kind of my last hurrah as a water resources specialist, and it's a really fun one. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and share some more information about PWD and Sebago Lake. So I have a couple images. I feel like it's nice to be able to see geographically the area that we're talking about. So I'm just going to queue up some slides. So just to start a little bit about Portland Water District, we're a quasi-municipal drinking water and wastewater utility. We've been providing drinking water since 1908, serving Maine's largest metropolitan area, that's Portland, and 11 surrounding communities. So that represents about 200,000 people, or 1/6 of Maine's population. On average, we're providing about 22 million gallons per day. And that all comes from Sebago Lake. So this should look familiar to most people, the great state of Maine. And Sebago Lake is here. It's about 20 miles northwest of Portland. Just to orient you, if you don't get out of the city much, that's the lake. And here you can see the lake in the middle of the screen, and then to the southeast area, that is the drinking water service area. So if you live or work in any of the blue shaded area, then you're probably drinking and using Sebago Lake on a very regular basis. The area oriented northwest of the lake is what's known as the watershed. So that's outlined in blue. For those of us who aren't environmental science nerds, a watershed is the entire land area that drains to a particular water body. So all of that land that falls within that outlined blue line, all of that is contributing water eventually to Sebago Lake. So it reaches all the way up to Bethel. It's about 280,000 land acres. And so if a raindrop falls in Bethel, it eventually will make its way to Sebago Lake, whether that's being soaked into the ground and getting there by groundwater, or traveling through the many chains of lakes that drain to Sebago, or via streams and rivers. There's a lot of beautiful lakes and streams in this region. So a couple cool things about Sebago Lake. One is that it has enormous storage capacity. It's the deepest lake in Maine. It's about 100 feet on average, and at its deepest point, it's over 300 feet deep. So overall, it holds about 1 trillion gallons of water. So it's a lot of water. You know, if we're providing about 22 million gallons per day, if you can do the math quickly, you might come to the conclusion that we have about 100 years worth of storage in the lake, which is just incredible. You know, thinking about places where they, you know, have storage capacity on the month's basis, and they're just praying for rain. We have this great, you know, natural reservoir that can sustain all of the uses that we need from it. It also has exceptional water quality. So if you have a lot of water and it's not so great, I mean, that's an okay position to be in. But we have a lot of water and it's really good water. So, you know, we're sitting pretty good in that situation. It's it's great water, and it's a really good drinking water source because it requires very little treatment. We're starting with a great product to begin with, so we don't have to do a lot to it to then send it on to our customers. So that keeps our rates low, and we're able to provide really consistent, reliable water. One of the main reasons why the water in the lake is so clean is because the watershed is primarily forested. If you're familiar with this area, then you know the lakes region. There's a lot of woods, a lot of water. It's really beautiful, and it's really fun to recreate there. But that forest is also continually doing a job filtering the water that flows into these lakes and streams. We like to say the forest is the filter. So how do forests keep our water clean? If you can imagine being in a forest when it's raining, the rain doesn't fall on you so forcefully. It sort of pitter patters through the leaves. And that's because the canopy is intercepting the raindrops and absorbing their energy and slowing them down so that when they hit the forest floor, they're landing quite gently and they're not dislodging soil or causing erosion, which can contribute to poor water quality. So the canopy is doing a job of slowing the rainwater down. And then when it hits the forest floor, if you think about the forest again, the forest floor is kind of spongy. There's many layers to it. So it acts like a sponge and soaks up the water and lets it infiltrate into the ground where it's taken up by the roots of plants and it's used by microbes. And all of that action is removing pollutants, removing nutrients, and trapping sediment so that none of that stuff is flowing into nearby lakes and streams. So because the forest is so important to our water in Sebago Lake, the Portland Water District has been working with land trusts over the years that operate in the watershed to help them conserve forest. We provide funding to conservation projects that result in the permanent protection of forest land. So this map again, but this time I'd like to point out that the areas in dark green are permanently conserved lands. So those lands are places, a lot of them are places where we recreate and we hike and we do all sorts of fun stuff, but they're also going to continue to act as filters and protect our water supplies into the future. So the land trusts do a great job at that, and we try and help them. And over the years, we've attracted more partners as well. And that's how we end up with Sebago Clean Waters, this coalition of now 11 partners who are all working together to protect this really valuable resource. And everyone is bringing different expertise and different resources together so that we can accomplish more as a partnership than any one organization could do individually. So Portland Water District is really proud to be a member of Sebago Clean Waters, and looking forward to working on some continued forest conservation into the future. So with that, I will hand it back to Karen. I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Laurel. That was a great background and reminder of what we have going on in the watershed. So next, I'd like to turn it over to Barry Sheff with Woodard and Curran, who's one of our business partners, and he's going to talk about the importance of clean water to our economy and the role businesses can play in it.
Thanks. And good afternoon, everybody. 1 week after Earth Day, in the middle of Water Week, it's great to be with you all, and thanks to the Chamber and to all of you joining us. So not sure how many of you tuned into the January Kegs and Issue on Maine outdoor economy, but if you heard a theme and hear one today, I'd love it to be about the value of clean water to Maine's economy. And I would say, yes, your day job is dependent upon clean water, and mine is too. And not to be preachy, but as a fellow panelist shared and will share, clean water has a huge impact here in the greater Portland region and can also have a violent effect if we aren't careful. You know, think Flint, Michigan just for a minute. Okay, now I don't want you to think about that. I want you to think about clean water. But the pandemic has impacted our food and beverage culture, with many favorite restaurants shuttering temporarily, some permanently. It's a huge part of our region's identity and our economy. Just in today's Press Herald, there was the last in a 5-part series on our restaurants. And not only am I a tree hugger, I consider myself a foodie. And what I choose to take away was the future is bright, but we've got to eat out. And the unwritten subtext of that article was we've got to have clean water. I'm going to make a few introductory remarks, but if you tune out, I want you to think, what if? What if we didn't have clean water in Portland to support our food and beverage industry? What would it look like? So in June of 2019, I was fortunately introduced to Curran and Sebago Clean Waters by colleagues at Portland Water District, and their goals and mission to conserve land within the watershed resonated. And the intent of that meeting was really to see if there was a fit between Woodard and Curran and Sebago Clean Waters. Now I want to go back before I go forward. First, so Woodard and Curran, we're a professional services firm with a focus on water and environment. And we were formed in Gorham in 1979, a professor and his former student that wanted to start a company to address the challenges of meeting the Clean Water Act. So headquartered in Portland since '85, we're privately held. We've grown to 1,200 individuals across the country, and we're focused on solving water issues. And the pandemic has certainly changed how we do what we do, but it hasn't changed what we do or why. Woodard and Curran's committed to this concept of stewardship, our ownership structure, our organizational development programs, building careers, and our footprint on the earth. And importantly, the third line in our mission reads, holding protection of the environment in regard superior to that of all other interests. So what I said earlier, my job is dependent upon clean water. It is. I'm a professional civil engineer. I've been at Woodard and Curran for 25 years. I'm passionate about water. That big project on Back Cove that's causing everybody a little bit of angst, that's 3.5 million gallon combined sewer storage tank, is improving the water quality of Casco Bay. That's my project. We're doing it for and with the city of Portland, and it's great. It's great for the region's water. I want to hit you with a little bit of data. So Maine Healthy Beaches program did a study. It's a little dated now, but in 2010, they said the economic value of clean water, and they put it in these terms. Tourism contributes $10 billion in annual economic activity, employing 140,000 people with over 500 million and 8,000 jobs related to beaches. Shellfish industry contributes $56 million, 2,500 jobs. I want you to think about those numbers and think about your business and the revenue that you generate, that your business generates here, Maine revenue, not globally. Those are significant. I need to believe there's broad acknowledgement that the economic health of our region has some dependency on clean water. We heard it in the video that Curran showed in the beginning, our hospitality sector, our beer, our coffee, local community supported agriculture, our working waterfront. Now imagine what Greater Portland would be like without clean drinking water, a healthy bay. Sorry to be gloomy, but it's one of the things that we need to think about each day. In 2017, the Value of Water campaign identified $82 billion in annual need for a decade to get reliable clean water. That 82 million, though, would create 1.3 million jobs, generate $220 billion in annual economic activity, a 3 times multiplier. The economic benefits of investing in water and sanitation are considerable. The WHO, World Health Organization, $4.30 return for every dollar invested. Fidelity in 2020 evaluated the global water crisis, and they suggested water has a slightly higher risk, but a slightly higher return than investment in domestic equities. And to go the other way, there's a lower risk and higher return in investments in water than there are in gold. And I apologize to all my real estate friends watching, but there's significantly lower risk and higher return in investments in water than there are in real estate. But despite all the benefits and the return on investment, we've struggled to make those investments. And in Maine, our drinking water gets a C+, it's down from a C+. I have kids, you all have kids. How do we react when they tell us they have a C in school? So out of discussions around Woodard and Curran's corporate social responsibility, we formed our foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit in 2010. A goal was to take our Woodard and Curran's vision of exemplary corporate citizenship further. I was a proud founding board member, and in 2017 was fortunate to become the president of our foundation. Woodard and Curran matches our employees' giving to our foundation dollar for dollar, and roughly 45% of all our employees give. The foundation makes grants to nonprofit organizations, big and small, working to protect our water and environment. It's what we are, it's who we are. So in 2017, our foundation happened upon the Atlantic Philanthropies and an article about the philosophy of giving while living. And we decided that was for us. Our current giving programs include a 3-year, $100,000 impact grant, which we make annually. This will be our 6th, and our Giving While Living grants. Our mission is to give to protect our water and environment. And like 2020, our 2021 budget is to give more than $200,000 grants. And to date, we've made over just about $800,000 awarded since 2010. We've found the unmet need for investing in our water and environments overwhelming. And to address that, our foundation continues to transition toward focusing on making grants to donor-nominated nonprofits. So now I want to recall you back to when we met with Curran and Sebago Clean Waters and their work around conservation. In 2017, the Nature Conservancy did an assessment on return on investment on watershed conservation. The case study was in Brazil, but they found overwhelmingly there's a higher yield for conservation over traditional engineering approaches at water treatment facilities, similar to what you heard from Laurel. In fall of 2020, Woodard and Curran's employees and foundation donors voted. We chose 10 organizations across the US to make a $10,000 grant to each, including to support the work of Sebago Clean Waters. Woodard and Curran's employees and our foundation donors understand the challenge of the water crisis. We understand and can appreciate the benefits of what Sebago Clean Waters is trying to achieve. Protecting the watershed, we believe, is attainable, and the value that it will provide to all of us and our children is both quantifiable and priceless. We're proud contributors to the work that Curran and Sebago Clean Waters are doing. We look forward to helping them realize their goal and protecting our water and our economy. We all benefit. Thanks, Curran.
Thank you, Barry. Thanks for setting that context. And actually, I'll just add that Sebago Clean Waters commissioned an economic study from the University of Maine Orono of the watershed, and found that for every dollar invested in forest land protection, there's $8 in return in many different forms, benefits like recreation and clean air, and also economic benefits. So lots of reasons to do this great work. So next I'd like to turn it over to Kristin Jackson with the Maine Brewshed Alliance, who we work closely with. She's going to say a few words about herself and also talk about why our local beer tastes so great, and what the breweries she's working with are doing to protect clean water.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Karen. And I think that was a great lead in from you, Barry. Again, I'm going to be speaking about the connection of clean water and our craft brewing industry here in Maine. So I'm going to share some slides just so y'all have something else to look at while I'm chatting. So let me just get those pulled up here. But again, I'm Kristin Jackson. I work at the Natural Resources Council of Maine, which is a state-based environmental advocacy organization. And I'm going to be talking about our project, the Maine Brewshed Alliance. And I'll start with a little bit of background on what that is and why we started it. So the Maine Brewshed Alliance is a coalition of craft breweries and NRCM working to protect clean water. We formed in 2019 with 13 member breweries and since have expanded to, I think it's 38. I probably should have counted before this presentation, but they're all right here. And a bunch of them, of course, we have members all across the state, from folks in Kittery up to Lubec, but a huge portion of our members are here in Portland and in the Sebago Lake watershed, as you might imagine. So we work closely with Sebago Clean Waters, as Karen said, to do what we can to steward and protect that watershed. So I'm going to talk first a little bit about the craft brewing industry, and then I'll tie in why it makes sense to work to protect clean water. I think it's no surprise to a lot of us that Maine's craft brewing industry has had a big boom in the past couple of years. I think these numbers are fascinating. In 2007, we had 14 breweries in the state. And as of 2021, we are up to 155. And you may have seen either a month ago or 2 months ago, we just surpassed Vermont as having the most breweries per capita in the nation. So if you need something else to brag to your out-of-state friends about why Maine is the best, just make sure that that is on the list as well. And because of that growth, the beer industry and its related activities contribute $2 billion to our state's economy and support nearly 16,000 jobs. And if we want to sustain that growth, and I think a lot of that growth can be contributed to the industry's #1 ingredient, which is water. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that connection and why Maine's clean water has helped to spur this growth. So beer is more than 90% water. You may be surprised to find out. Depends on the style. Some are more, some are less, but at least 90%, if not more. And again, water is one of the 4 main ingredients. It's water, malt, hops, and yeast. And because water makes up such a big percentage of what is in beer, the quality of the water, the pH of the water, the mineral content of the water, all of that leads to the quality of the beer. And so I've had our brewery partners explain Maine's clean water as a blank canvas to brew with because it is so clean. So I know I'm simplifying the process a lot, but essentially our brewers can turn on the tap and brew with the water right away. Whereas in other states where the water is not so clean, that's not the case. And brewers have to go through filtration or different treatments, whether it's chemicals or whatever it might be, before they can start the brewing in order to get the style and the taste and the flavor that they want for their beer. So because we don't have to do that extra filtration or treatment here in Maine, it saves brewers time and it saves brewers money upfront as well. And so it can definitely be said that our clean water has led to this growth of this business and some of the success for our brewers here in the state. And so that was part of the impetus for us to start this Maine Brewshed Alliance. We have 3 main goals. The first is to help educate customers about the importance of being stewards of Maine waters through social media and through events. And really that goal is about making this public connection of clean water is not just a benefit for our health, which is obviously important. It's not just a benefit for recreation, like swimming and paddling, like we all like to do, but it's also important for our economy, like Barry was just saying, and for a product that many of us enjoy and like to experience, which is craft beer. And so elevating that message to the public helps to protect clean water across the board. We also support policies and programs that protect the waters of Maine, so doing advocacy at the State House and on the federal level, and then raising awareness and money for clean water initiatives, whether that's the Brewshed Alliance ourselves or partnering with folks like Sebago Clean Waters to give money directly to conservation in these watersheds. And so I have a few examples of some of the work that we have done, and then we'll turn it over to questions. But this, again, clean water advocacy is one of the main goals of the Maine Brewshed Alliance. And so here are a few examples of how that's taken shape. The first picture must have been, I think, in 2019, back when, or it's in 2020, right before the pandemic, but we were in person. And that's Abe Firth, who's the owner of Orono Brewing Company, testifying in front of the Maine legislature on a bill that would protect lake water quality. And then on the right are some snippets of news clips from when we were working with brewers to protect the Clean Water Rule, which is federal legislation that would protect small streams and wetlands under the Clean Water Act. And so again, this can be really powerful to have business leaders and business owners speaking out in support of clean water and in support of the environment. I think so often the environment and the economy can be pitted against each other in these conversations. And again, like Barry was saying, especially here in Maine, that's just so not true. Our environment and our economy are so tightly intertwined, and we rely on clean water and a healthy environment to have a healthy economy. So this has been really great. Another example is some of our fundraising efforts were charity beers, which are a really fun way to spread the word about clean water and support clean water. And so just this month, you might still be able to find some in stores. It was a small run, but if you go check in Portland beer stores, you should be able to find some of Pale Blue Dot, which was Foundation Brewing's beer that benefits Sebago Clean Waters, and Love Your Planet, which is Orono Brewing's beer that supports Maine Brewshed Alliance. And these were an Earth Day collaboration between the two breweries. They're Earth Day IPAs, really tasty. I recommend to go find some if you haven't already had them. And not only does this raise money, which is always great, but also continues to help spread that message about clean water, because it has a little bit of clean water messaging on the cans. And then last, an example of some community events, which we're so hoping to do again when we can. We did this back in 2019, river cleanup at Mast Landing in Westbrook. So brought together local folks in Westbrook to clean up the shores of the Presumpscot River, and then had a conversation afterwards over free beers about the importance of clean water and how that contributes to our craft brewing economy. And was covered by some local news outlets, and the city of Westbrook put together a little video that we were able to promote those efforts too. So it doesn't have to be advocacy. It doesn't have to be fundraising for businesses to contribute. There's also these ways of bringing people together and just talking about the importance of clean water that has been really impactful. So those are just a few examples. And if you take anything away from what I was saying, it's that clean water means great beer. That's my takeaway message. And I put our two websites down on the bottom if you want to learn more about either the Maine Brewshed Alliance's work or NRCN's work. And I'm happy to answer any questions too. I'll turn it back to you, Karen.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristin. It's great to hear about all the creative ways that people are getting involved and working on this issue together. It really brings people together, so thank you. And I'll just give an additional shout out to some of your Brewshed Alliance members who are also working with us, Allagash, Rising Tide, and Bissell Brothers. So thanks to all of them. I think we're going to move into a question and answer session now. And while we get that set up, I'm going to put a link in the chat for some of where you can find out about some of the Drinking Water Week activities occurring next week. It's a link to Portland Water District's website and our social. So let's see if we could get Barry and Laurel to unmute. Hopefully we will all magically appear on the screen together. So why don't we start with a fun question. Now that we know Maine beer is superior because of the excellent water in it, and also coffee and other things, I'd love to hear from our panelists what your favorite way to enjoy Maine's water in a local beverage is. And I'll just start by saying that I'm currently drinking a Lone Pine watermelon cucumber craft seltzer, and I can't wait to try the Pale Blue Dot that Kristin mentioned. So how about you guys? And you know, I'd like to invite, while we're doing this, why don't we invite our audience to light up the chat with all of your favorite Maine local beverages made with clean water, and that might include beer and coffee.
Well, my Pale Blue Dot is gone already. We between my husband and myself, we drank those already. But right now, I don't know if you can see this. This for me is the sign of spring, the Rising Tide Maine Island Trail Ale. So that is what I'm currently into. It's pairs well with outdoor activities and also supports the Maine Island Trail Association. So yeah, that's what I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite, but this is my seasonal favorite at the moment.
I also find it hard to pick a favorite. Right now, I'm just drinking some good old classic Sebago Lake water from my tap. But if I had to pick a favorite beer, big fan of fruit and sour beer. So I'd probably pick something from Allagash, like maybe Little Sal, which is made with Maine blueberries.
Awesome. How about you, Barry?
I'm a Rising Tide Ishmael year round, whenever I can get it. Great. My favorite.
Great. So Laurel, I have this question that I'm always curious about, and a lot of people ask me about. And I know the answer, but I know others might want to hear. How does Portland Water District protect the lake while still allowing boating and swimming and all sorts of fun recreation on the lake? How can we also drink that water?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one that we get a lot. If you spend time on or around the lake, then you know it's super popular. But we have, so the intakes are located in the southern part of the lake, and around them there's a no trespassing zone. So that's no boating or swimming, and that's 3,000 feet around the intakes. And then beyond that, there's what we call the no bodily contact zone. So you can boat there, but you can't touch the water with your body. And the reason for that is because when you get close to the intakes, your main concern is bacterial and viral contamination, and the kind of stuff that can make you sick comes off our human bodies, right? It's kind of icky. But that's why we don't allow any swimming or touching the water in that area. And beyond that, you can recreate as much as you want, and we do testing to make sure that those limits are in the right places. And what we find is that inside that 2-mile limit, there's there's no bacteria essentially, which is just incredible for a lake to have no harmful bacteria in its untreated water. So those limits work really well to protect against any acute risk of contamination. For the boating piece, one interesting thing is that gases and oils, if you think about how they present, it's a sheen on the top of the water, right? That's how you know they're there. And that's where they stay. And from there, they evaporate into the air. And our intakes are in 80 feet of water because the lake is so deep. We can put the intakes very low, and then the gases and oils never make it down there. And again, we continue to test. We test all the time. And it's super boring. We always find nothing, but that's what you want for a drinking water supply, right? So we say we have 10% for drinking water, 10% of the area of the lake, and 90% for recreation. And that's working really well because, we want to make sure people who love the lake can get out and enjoy it too, and keep it protected as a drinking water source. So, it's really nice that it's so big and it's so resilient, but we do have to think about the long-term protection too. And that's where the forest conservation piece comes in. That's thinking way into the future to make sure that we can continue to have this as a resource.
Thank you, Laurel. That's great. And actually have a follow-on question. Barry mentioned a study that rated Maine's drinking water a C+. And I was wondering if you could put that Sebago Lake in context of that kind of what I assume is a statewide grade.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that study, but one thing that we, tout because it's really quite rare is that Sebago is what PWD has what's called a waiver to filtration. So all surface water supplies are required to filter their water unless you can prove that essentially there's nothing in there to filter. And that's what we're able to do. So because the water is so clean to start with, we're not required to do that. We disinfect it, of course, and kill any potential harmful bacteria or viruses, but we don't have to filter it. And that is a designation that only about 50 water supplies have out of 13,000 nationally. So it's pretty rare, it's pretty uncommon, and it's definitely something that we're really proud of. And that's another reason why we got to keep it good and protect what we have.
Thanks, Laurel. Barry, I'm going to turn to you. I'm curious, your Living While Giving grants, I understand that your employees are involved in nominating charities and also in selecting charities for those grants. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that experience, if you've gotten feedback from your employees about being involved in your charitable work.
Yeah. And just for the nerds in the room that want to know, just to sort of touch on Laurel. So American Society of Civil Engineers every few years does an infrastructure report card.
Okay.
And nationwide, drinking water got a C-. The Maine section of the American Society of Civil Engineers gave Maine's drinking water a C. And that's down from a C+ in 2016, but that's statewide. So anybody can Google that and they'll find it. But it's a really good question. What we initially were doing with our grant programs, with our foundation, were soliciting applicants. What we found was there's a tremendous need for giving and tremendous numbers of folks around the country. And we surveyed our donors, and the bulk of our donors being Woodard and Curran Foundation employees. And we said to them, you know, are we giving to the organizations? Are we having the impact that we want to be having? And overwhelmingly, the feedback that we got was that they'd like to be more participating and participatory in that process. And so each year, I mean, we have the benefit of the support of Woodard and Curran Inc., how we connect with our donors, the bulk of our donors. Each year through our foundation administrator, we create little, I guess they're teams documents that we're able to solicit feedback, and folks identify nonprofits. Last year, when we made our 10 grants, we had over 40 organizations that were nominated by Woodard and Curran donors. And interestingly, there were a lot of overlaps in geographies, but it's really incredible. And then we had over 300 employees, donors, vote on those nonprofits. So the engagement, the ability for our donors to be able to participate in that giving, and to be able to aggregate funds. I mean, that's, you know, the ability to make meaningful gifts is really awesome.
Great, Barry. Such a nice opportunity for your employees to be involved. So we've been hearing about the many benefits to conserving forests, including places for recreation, hiking, biking, skiing, snowmobiling, you name it. During the pandemic, many of us are getting outside more, which has been wonderful, and I think really appreciating these places more. So I'm curious from our panel, do you have a favorite spot in the watershed that you love to go and be outdoors? And if so, what do you like to do there?
Who wants to go first? I'll go first. We spend a lot of time outdoors, and I would say, you know, one of my favorite spots for years, we brought our kids to ski up on Shawnee Peak, and we mountain bike a lot right here in town in Cumberland, up on Knights Pond, right around Knights Pond, and we're completely aware of our surroundings and our impact on the water. Drilling it into our kids, starting them young.
I am a big open water swimmer. So as soon as it gets warm enough, which I'm hoping in like a few weeks, I'll take my wetsuit and drag my husband out in his kayak to take a swim somewhere in the watershed. And I've done some really great races at the, Point Sebago area. And then this is a very basic answer, but also have a lot of great memories at Sebago Lake State Park and growing up going there with my family for little cookouts or beach days or whatever it might be.
Yeah, the Sebago Lake State Park is so pretty. That's we're lucky that we have that, but you know, that was turned into a state park so many years ago. Well, I really like to walk on the trails around Sebago Lake. So Portland Water District actually owns some watershed protection land around the lake that's called the Sebago Lake Land Reserve. And you know, since we've been working from home mostly, but when I report back to my new job, I'll be at the Portland office, which is kind of a bummer because before I was up in Standish and on my lunch breaks, I could go out and walk on the trails, or after work, there's a really nice section of the Sebago to the Sea Trail that goes down to the lake, and that's just a really beautiful spot. So on summer days, I'd boogie down there quickly after work and go for a dip. So I'll miss that, but I'll have to make some special trips up there. And get back out there.
That's great. I just I just put a link in the chat to a recent blog post on Sebago Clean Water's page that lists 5 different great places to get out in the watershed to do different kinds of activities, bird watching, dog walking, trail running, those kinds of things. One of them is my favorite personally, which is Bald, again, hard to choose a favorite, but I've been there the most this year, Bald Pate Preserve, which is a Lunico Land Trust preserve. It's a great place for a family hike. There's a beautiful view from the top, and yeah, it's not too long a hike or too strenuous, but just enough to feel like you really did something to get that view. I've also been eyeing a paddling trip on the Crooked River, which is the largest tributary to Sebago Lake. And this time of year, there's some nice whitewater there. So we'll see if we make it out for that. So let's see, Kristin, I'm curious if there are any upcoming bills in the legislature that you wanted to highlight that are relevant to protecting Sebago Lake.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Right now, the legislature is considering a bond package that would fund Land for Maine's Future and updates to the state park infrastructure. And so Land for Maine's Future is a program that was founded in 1987 and provides funding for land conservation. And since its inception has helped to protect more than 600,000 acres all across the state, including a lot of acreage in the Sebago Lake watershed. But the program hasn't been funded since 2012, so is in desperate need of new funding, especially now more than ever. We have more people spending time outside. We have sort of a real estate land grab going on. We need to make sure that we are conserving land where it's important. So Land for Maine's Future, it's LD 983, if anyone wants to write that down, and reaching out to your legislator and asking them to support Land for Maine's Future would be incredibly helpful.
Great. So the next question, actually, we had someone comment in the chat, a question about gray water systems and rainwater collection, which ties in really nicely with the next question I was going to pose about things that people living in the greater Portland area or in the watershed can do to keep their water clean. So if you have any tips, and I'll just say, Kevin, thanks for your comment. Certainly gray water systems and rainwater collection are great ways to help keep our local waters clean, whether that be a water that drains to Sebago Lake, or if it's something that drains to Casco Bay. Those are really important ways to capture pollutants and retain good water that could be used for watering plants or gardens or other things. And I imagine some of our panelists have other tips as well.
Yeah, I second everything Curran said. Portland Water District also runs a rain barrel program. So right now we're selling rain barrels. We sell them at cost. So yeah, it's a great way to collect the runoff from your roof or your property and then reuse it, and then that keeps it out of the storm drains and keeps it from picking up any pollutants as it flows down the street or across your property. We also work with landowners around the lake to make recommendations for how they can make their properties more lake friendly and reduce erosion. And there are other organizations that do very similar work. The Lake Smart program is great at that. So, particularly around the water bodies we're focusing, but even on your own property, looking for places to trap that water and get it infiltrated into the ground is always a good thing to do.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments, and I would say, the simple things that we can all do. For those of you that might wash your car at home, put it on the grass before you wash your car, as opposed to washing it and then having the soap and soapy water run down the curb line into the gutter. When you cut your grass, mulch it, don't bag it. Don't put it in, and if you do bag it and you put your grass clippings, don't put them next to a drainage swale on the side of your driveway that is going to then run off into the road. All those things, all those little things help.
Kristin, I don't know if you have any other thoughts, but certainly those who are dog lovers, we're always needing to remind people to pick up those bags, you know, and a lot of people are so great about picking it up, but then forgetting to bring the bag home. So, you know, just a gentle reminder about that. Let's see, what I'm curious if you guys, we're almost at time here, but 2 other quick questions. Do you, Laurel or Kristin or Barry, have a vision sort of for where we're headed, maybe 10 years from now, where we'll be as a region with respect to our water and our forest? Well, I'll just say, I can jump in and yeah, I'll just jump in and say, you know, my hope is that, you know, of course, that the lake stays pristine and we have these amazing forests to support our Maine way of life, and that there's a growing recognition of how special this place is and the need for everyone to sort of play their part in helping to continue that.
Yeah, that's a big question, Karen. But I echo what you say. I grew up in the Portland area and moved away for college and then a set of years afterwards, and came back because I just missed so much about the community. And I think a big part of it was that access to the outdoors that we have in this clean and healthy environment. And my husband and I are actually expecting our first child this year. And I just often think about, I want them to have that same experience of this region that I did, able to drink clean water, able to breathe clean air, and able to access outdoor spaces and wild spaces to play and recreate. So that's my vision.
Congratulations. Wow. That's amazing, Kristin. And what a great place to grow up.
My vision is to work myself out of a job. You know, there's all sorts of incredible engineering solutions and innovation that we can do. You know, there are brilliant people thinking about different things. But the reality is, if we all do our part, and this is a perfect example of land conservation as a mechanism to clean water. You know, I would challenge everybody, when you travel, and we all travel, and you order at a restaurant, drink the tap water, or drink the tap water wherever you can go, and think about that, and think about the tap water that you drink, the Portland Water District's tap water. And you will be amazed by the quality, and you will be amazed by the fact that, wow, this is coming from a resource that we can protect, and we have the ability to protect it.
Yeah, and I would just echo everything that you all said. I think we're seeing right now a lot of interest in this region, and who can blame people? It's beautiful. It's a wonderful place to live, you know, and people want to live here. And I think we have room for them, you know. I think we have room for everyone, you know, as long as we're protecting those very special places at the same time, you know. Development and conservation go hand in hand, and that's my vision for the future. And I think we can do it. And I think there's a lot of really passionate people, you know, I think everyone who lives here loves it, and we feel connected to it. And, you know, we just need to work together to get to that vision.
Thank you, Laurel. I agree. There are just so many people passionate about sustainability and preserving this place for our future. And I agree, there is room for more, and more people who will love it and take care of it. So wonderful. Kristin, last question. How can we as consumers support both Maine Brewshed Alliance and Sebago Clean Waters?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think there's lots of ways that y'all can support us. One simple way is to patron the breweries that contribute to the 2 initiatives. So there's a whole list of them on our website. Karen mentioned a bunch too that are here in Portland that contribute to both Sebago Clean Waters and Maine Brewshed Alliance. You can find our events as well and our fundraising initiatives on our websites. And I know just some specific examples to benefit Sebago Clean Waters is to buy Lone Pine's new seltzer that they just put out that Karen is drinking. A percentage go to Sebago Clean Waters, and also becoming a member of the Allagash Co-op. I hope is that what it's called? Cooperative co-op something, which part of the proceeds also go to Sebago Clean Waters, and you just get some really great perks and discounts on beer.
Absolutely. I think it's called The Collective.
Thank you.
Collective. And thanks for mentioning it, Kristin. That's great. And I'll also put in a plug for getting involved with the local partners that we're working with in the watershed. So Loon Echo Land Trust, Western Foothills Land Trust, Lakes Environmental Association, and Mahoosic Land Trust all have great fun summer outdoor events coming up that are also fundraisers. So there's the Norway Try on July 10th. In September, the Trek for the Trails, which is Loon Echo Land Trust. We've got the Ridge to the River Challenge on September 25th. That's in the Mahoosic region. And we're hoping that Lakes Environmental Association is going to be able to do their paddle battle again this year. So keep your eye out on social media for those. And thank you so much to all of our panelists. This has been great. And Tommy, for the opportunity to be a part of this. We really appreciate it. And thank you to our chamber members. Cheers. We're almost there to the weekend. So enjoy.
Well, Karen, thank you so much again. Great, compelling presentation. I'm a huge supporter of this initiative. Got my Sebago Clean Waters cap on right now. We hope you all enjoyed this presentation tonight. And one more thank you to our wonderful guest speakers, Tom, Diane, Karen, Laurel, Barry, and Kristin for joining us again tonight. There will be a follow-up email with additional resources, and the replay link for this event will be made available after tonight. I want you all to mark your calendars now for our annual event, Imagine Portland, which is on Wednesday, June 9th. Winners will be announced in our events newsletter tomorrow and across social media beginning this weekend. And as always, for additional news, updates, and all events, please visit our website at portlandregion.com. Thank you, and we hope you'll be able to join us again for our next Kegs and Issues in June. Have a great night.